Our next guest broke a long-standing tradition in the U.S. Church. He is the first non-Cardinal to be elected chair of the U.S. Bishops' Pro-Life Committee in nearly 40 years. Archbishop Joseph Naumann of the Archdiocese of Kansas City will take over Cardinal Timothy Dolan's pro-life role late next year. The U.S. bishops elected Naumann as their pro-life leader during their General Assembly earlier in November. Archbishop Joseph Naumann of the Archdiocese of Kansas City joins us from Kansas City, Missouri. Your Excellency, thank you for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Catherine. Thanks.
Archbishop Naumann, some outlets were pitting you against Cardinal Blase Cupich in this USCCB election, calling it a bellwether vote. What did you make of that commentary and the fact that you were elected over Cardinal Cupich?
Well, I think the news media is into looking for controversies and finding them where there really aren't any. I think Cardinal Cupich is an extremely talented person. The very fact that he was willing to run for the pro-life chairmanship, I think, shows his own commitment to it. And I think the vote, for whatever reasons, the bishops gave me this opportunity to serve in this way. I think part of it is just the long history I've had working in the pro-life apostolate for the church.
You are the first non-Cardinal to be appointed as chair of the U.S. Bishops' Pro-Life Committee since 1980, I believe. Why, in your opinion, do you think your brother bishops entrusted you with this role?
Well, I've always liked the fact that we've elected cardinals because I think it's been a convention that shows the importance that the conference places on the pro-life issue. Why they made it an exception this time, I hope it's because, again, my long history of working in the pro-life apostolate. I've served on the committee, I think, 6 terms now, so most bishops have not had that opportunity to have that breadth of experience with the pro-life issue.
Your Excellency, what do you see as the top priority for the U.S. bishops when it comes to the pro-life issue?
Well, we take a multidimensional approach in trying to change the culture to a culture of life. It involves prayer, it involves education, it involves the pastoral care of those in a crisis pregnancy as well as those who have had an abortion and now deeply regret it, and it involves public advocacy. So I hope in some way our committee will try in each of those areas, when I do assume the chairmanship, which will be in another year, that we'll be able to in some way advance the church's work in all 4 of those areas.
Earlier this year, you announced parishes in your Kansas City Archdiocese would stop hosting Girl Scout troops because Girl Scouts internationally support legalized abortion and hold up Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood's founder, as a role model. Has there been a lot of fallout from that decision, and why did you decide this was an important issue to take on?
Well, this has been a long dialogue that we've been in with Girl Scouts. The Bishops' Conference under our Marriage, Family, and Youth Committee had really looked into it, identified some concerns, and of course it was up to local bishops to make a decision. And in the end, after this long dialogue, it was my view that we have such precious little time with our young people that we couldn't afford to entrust them to an organization that didn't share all of our values, especially on issues as important as the life issues on human sexuality and on marriage. And so it seemed to me that we needed to concentrate our resources with organizations and groups that we could partner with that shared more our viewpoints. And again, this is up to each local bishop to decide what he thinks is best. And I think we did a long, careful process. In the end, we thought this was what was best for our young people.
Under your leadership in the Archdiocese of St. Louis, earlier on in your religious life, the Archdiocese began the Project Rachel ministry. Why is this post-abortion healing ministry one that's crucial for the pro-life movement and for Catholics to support?
Well, the gospel is all about mercy and all about forgiveness. And so this is an essential part of our pro-life ministry. It is reaching out to those who usually under great pressure and duress, made a decision that now they deeply regret. And because our teaching has been so strong in this area, sometimes people can think they've committed an unforgivable sin. This is not an unforgivable sin. And only God's mercy and grace can really bring healing to individuals. So this is one of the most important dimensions of our pro-life ministry.
You have insisted that politicians who identify as Catholics need to be held to the moral standards set by the Church. Are there specific U.S. Catholic politicians in office right now you think we need to do a better job of calling out for not opposing abortion?
Well, again, I think each local bishop has to make his own judgment and discernment in these areas. And for instance, my decision with our former governor, Kathleen Sebelius, only happened after a long dialogue with her. And actually, it wasn't my intention to publicly embarrass her, but I did ask her at one point not to present herself for communion as long as she continued to veto legislation that was trying to protect innocent children. And when she didn't comply with that, when she chose to go to the Eucharist, then I felt I needed to make it public. And because what happens is that these politicians, when they say I'm Catholic, but I also am pro-choice, pro/pro-abortion, and you can be a good Catholic and do this as well, they're actually usurping the role of the bishop in teaching the Catholic faith. So I think when politicians choose to kind of flaunt their Catholicity while they're contradicting it by their actions, sometimes it is necessary for a bishop for the safety of his people to point out their actions are not consistent with our Catholic faith.
Archbishop Joseph Naumann of the Archdiocese of Kansas City, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Catherine, and good to be with you. Thanks for the invitation.